All right, welcome back. Third video of the day. This is going to be the last one of the day, I think it's safe to say. And this is going to be going over the quick little review of week one of the Chinese DPC. We're actually more like a week and a half into the Chinese DPC because, of course, they play on Mondays and Tuesdays. And so they've already played their second week's matches today. And because they're playing all of their matches in the first 3 weeks of the DPC for the lower division, that is, and the only division that's playing is the lower division. They're pretty much halfway done their season at this point, and so I was debating whether or not to even make this video. I thought maybe I should just wait until the season's actually done and do a full review, but now that we're at the halfway point, I thought, might as well do a little bit of a checkup and see where everyone's landed here in this halfway point. If it wasn't already obvious, because there is no upper division, I'm going to be doing this video a little bit differently than my other reviews. First of all, going through the matches, because there are so many of them, I'm not going to go through each and every single one of them. I'm mainly just going to be talking about some of the teams in the standings, who they've played against, who they haven't, who they've been able to beat, and who they haven't. And then after that, we're going to take a look at some stats here. So again, this is going to be a little bit different than my other videos, but China is kind of the exception to the rule because of the fact that they have a different schedule. Yeah, so working my way through these matches here. Again, not really going to give a little bit of a review here, just going to kind of run it down here from the top. At the start of our DPC season on November 29th, we saw Sparking Arrow Gaming taking down CDEC. Sparking Arrow Gaming was getting off to a good start. It was nice to see because, of course, they got relegated last season. And when they beat CDEC, it wasn't immediately clear that CDEC was going to be one of the weakest in the division. So I thought it was pretty good. They got off to a good start. Now we know that CDEC definitely is not one of the strongest in this division. After that, we had Magma taking on Neptune, same kind of thing. Magma gets a nice win. Neptune would prove to be one of the weakest in this division. And they're pretty much done their entire season, actually. They only have one series left, and that's on the 10th. And they're pretty much guaranteed relegation at this point. Spoiler, they're 0-6 right now. But if they do win their next series, and if CDEC beats Xtreme Gaming in their matchup, and then they lose the rest of their series, and Xtreme lose the rest of their series, then they have a possibility of winning through tiebreakers against Xtreme and CDEC, which is super, super unlikely. So they're very much going to be very likely to be eliminated. But regardless, the possibility is still there. Following that, on November 30th, we had Ybb beating Neptune. We had Shenzhen beating Sparking Arrow. So Sparking Arrow, they lose 2-1, so they still take a game off of it, but it's a series that slips away from them. And then Magma beating CEC. So again, right off the bat, Magma gets up to 2-0 start, but they beat CDEC and Neptune, who are proving to be the two weakest teams in this division. Following that, on December 3rd, we had Shenzhen beating Neptune 2-0 and Aries beating Ybb. Ybb's been a real surprising one for me. They've been one of the more fun and exciting teams to watch in this division. And Aries is looking like the clear front runner for winning. They've gotten 2 wins against the weaker teams, CDEC and Neptune, but they've also got 2 wins against some of the stronger teams, Ybb and Shenzhen, and we'll end up seeing that later on. On December 5th, we have Xtreme beating Neptune. That was Xtreme's debut. They've actually only played 2 series up to this point, so it's a little bit weird how the schedule worked, where Neptune has pretty much already done their season, and Xtreme has hardly even started. We then have Aries beating Shenzhen, like I mentioned, Magma beating Sparking Arrow. Again, Sparking Arrow losing in 3, so they didn't quite lose 2-0. December 6th, so yesterday we had Aries beating Neptune 2-0. Again, easy series for them. Ybb beating Magma. This was an exciting one. So Magma, again, was pulling ahead with a pretty good lead here, and it's starting off 2-0. But again, those were against some of the weaker teams, so Ybb showing that they're still one of the strongest teams. And then finally, earlier today, we had Sparking Arrow Gaming beating Neptune, who at this point is basically a free win. Ybb beating Xtreme, which I was a little surprised about because Xtreme definitely has a pretty crazy roster. It consists of DY and PYW from the previous Fuji Gaming, who finished top 8 at TI. Also with Paparazzi, who's been just popping off in European pubs as of late. And they're off to a 1-1 start, so not terrible, but still, it was a real shocker to me that they ended up losing this one. And then Aries beating CDEC, and that's where we are right now. So again, we're pretty much halfway done this season to this point, so it's a nice little checkpoint for us to stop. Taking a look at the standings, we have Aster Aries that are 4-0 right now. Again, 2 of those wins coming against CDEC and Neptune, who are at the bottom right there. But then those other 2 coming from Shenzhen and Yb, who find themselves in the top 4. So Aster Aries looking like one of the teams that's likely going to be in the upper division. However, then that would mean that Aster has 2 teams in the upper division, and if I recall correctly, that's not supposed to be allowed. So it's going to be interesting to see if they maybe just donate their spot to another team, like we've seen before in the past. Who knows? We then have YBB and Magma both tied at 3-1. YBB actually beat Magma in their matchup, like I mentioned, so they're technically placed ahead. However, since they have the same record, if they actually ended up tied at the end of the season, they would still have to have a tiebreaker between the two of them. Following that, we have Shenzhen, who is 2-1 right now. Shenzhen, the only series that they lost so far has been against Ares, which no one has been able to beat Ares yet, so no shame in that. We then have Sparking Arrow, who is 2-2 right now. Again, they got off to a strong start, but the only teams that they've been able to beat so far were the weaker teams in this division. So they lost to Shenzhen and Magma, so they still got some series against Ares and against YBB. We'll see where Sparking Arrow ends up getting. Next up, we have Xtreme. Again, they've only played 2 series so far. They won their first series up against Neptune, but of course, everyone's beating Neptune, and then they lost to YBB. So, again, this could end up being Astra Ares plus YBB going to this upper division. Will be really interesting. Finally, now at the bottom of our list, we have CDEC and Neptune, both of which have gone winless, which means Neptune, now that they've played 6 of their 7 series, the only team they've yet to play is CDEC. And funnily enough, even though Neptune is 0-6 so far and CDEC still has 4 more series to play, Neptune has some better stats overall. They've got higher average GPM, higher average XPM as well. Their match duration is longer, which generally is something you want to see from a losing team. Considering the fact that these guys have lost everything they've played, having a longer match duration means that those games were likely a little bit closer. So I'm anticipating when these two teams end up meeting that Neptune maybe edges out and win, but I don't think it'll be enough for them. I think these two teams are likely going to be the 2 teams that are going home. So taking a look at some stats now, because again, moving through things kind of quickly here in this little review is a little bit different from my usual, like I mentioned. In the past 34 matches, which there have been so far, Radiant and Dire actually have an even 17-17 score right now. First and last pick actually, though, are separated 21-13, so first pick being slightly favored in this one. Out of those 34 matches, there have been 80 different heroes that have been picked. The best of which being Doom, who is 5-0 right now. We have Io, who is 6-1, who has been very popular in a lot of different regions this patch, especially when paired with some sort of tempo carry like Luna. And then Hoodwink, who has been picked 12 times, which is one of the highest that we've seen, and she has 9 wins for a 75% win rate there, which is pretty surprising. We're not really seeing Hoodwink getting picked up in very many regions, which is something that I love so much about Dota, is that like it's the exact same game in every region, but every region kind of develops their own meta. And Hoodwink has kind of been China's signature this tour. Looking at the worst heroes now, Lion 0-5, miserable time for Lion. Snapfire 3-12. This is the most picked hero in the entire Chinese DPC, and she has a 20% win rate on 15 games, which is pretty sad. We then have Queen of Pain, who is also 2-7. Again, another hero that's popular in a lot of different regions and has been having a pretty decent amount of success in other regions, but in China, it's not really been a very good run for her. Finally, now looking at the most banned heroes, we have Weaver with 29. 34 games, 29 bans. He only made it through in 5, and in all 5 of those games, he was picked, and he is 4-1 right now for 80% win rate on Weaver. Weaver is one of those heroes that just seems to be broken in every region. Every region has him either most banned or most picked, and yeah, this is a good example of why. Razor with 26 bans, again, another hero that's been picked up quite a lot in this new meta, where it seems to be very fast paced. You want to have some sort of semi carry in the safe lane, whether that be like a mid laner in the safe lane, like a Shadow Fiend, a Templar Assassin, a Kunkka. Razor fills that slot perfectly as well. He just kind of dominates his lane, and he just builds an early BKB. So yeah, and then finally Mars and Monkey King with 20 bans each. Those as well still being pretty popular heroes among some other regions. Looking now at the top teams, for GPM, that goes to Shenzhen. They actually have a GPM of 23.99. So for a team that's in the lead right now, that's not super high. But again, compared to the other regions, these guys have played many more games, so their sample sizes are a lot larger. There's a lot less opportunity for really high or really low GPMs. Second place, we have Ares with 22.99, and then Sparking Arrow Gaming with 22.47. So despite the fact that they're 2-2 right now, they've put up a decent amount of GPM. Again, the only series that they won were against the weaker teams, but even in the ones that they lost it in 3 as opposed to 2. For top XPM, we have Ares, who of course is leading the charge right now with 28.18, Magma with 27.76, and then finally Xtreme Gaming with 27.71. Which is a little crazy because Xtreme Gaming has a pretty low match duration when they win. However, in the games that they lose, their average match duration is 17 minutes longer in games when they lose than when they win. Usually when they win, their match duration is 28 minutes, which is extremely low, and when they lose, it's around 45 minutes, which is a pretty crazy stat. Again, they've only played 2 series, but they have played 5 games, so it's something pretty notable here. The later the game goes for Xtreme Gaming, the worse the game usually is for them. There's actually one team in here, Shenzhen, where their average winning percentage is a lot higher the longer the game goes. For games that they win, their match duration is 53 minutes, which is insanely high. Usually a match duration is hovering between the 30 to 40 minute mark, but when they lose, it hovers at 33 minutes. So Shenzhen is that one team that will really take it to the late game and will actually beat you there. And it seems to be working pretty well as they're 2-1 so far. For top KDA, we have Ares with a 6.56 KDA, which is very high in comparison to second place here, who is Xtreme with 4.64, and Magma with 4.18. Now looking at the players, we have Keiko with 702 at GPM, Lou with a 673, and Magma's position 1, who has a Mandarin name, so I don't know how to pronounce it. He is a 638 GPM right now. For top XPM, we have Keiko again leading the way with a 729. XPM, we have Dust with 711 and Ulu with 701. And finally, wrapping things up with top KDA players, we have Ulu leading the charge with 12.92, which is insanely high. Phoenix with 11.62, which is also insanely high. And Magma's position 1 player, still very, very high, 8.35. So yeah, a lot of impressive stats, especially considering the fact that, like I was mentioning in some of my other reviews, these numbers can be very high when it comes to small sample sizes, but these guys, some of which have played up to 6 series already, and they're still showing to have some pretty crazy stats. So pretty entertaining. But anyways, thank you guys so much. Sorry this was a little bit different format from my usual review, but again, because of the nature of China's different schedule, this is kind of the way that I had to do it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below as always, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow with my Western European Week 1 review, which is going to be super spicy. I'm really excited to dive into that one, and yeah, talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.